Today, I'm going to be discussing Saphier's clarity strategy, making transitions between ideas. So, as an introduction, I'm going to bring us into what making transitions means, and then what kind of shifts there are in a lesson for making transitions, such as a shift in activity, a shift in level, and a shift in pace. Now, making transitions can be a little bit similar to foreshadowing, but how it differs is that it is a brief within lesson transition. It is mostly applicable while direct instruction is taking place. It is a verbal marker that can help students follow the roadmap of the lesson and is usually a segue into the steps needed to complete a task. An example of making a transition can be, okay, that word problem required us to subtract. Let's see if the next one is the same. That way, the students understand that the next problem requires the same level of thinking, and they know what their expectations are just by you verbalizing that transition. To the next question. When making transitions, it takes something about what has just been done in the lesson and relates it to what is coming up immediately in the lesson. It provides students intellectual links and verbal cues, and the link is to what has come immediately before the lesson itself. Another good example of this can be, so that is how the draft was implemented in the Vietnam War. Let's look at how the draft affected enrollment in the military. So you're taking the idea that you've been instructing on how the draft was implemented, and you've been talking about it in the lesson, and then you transition by verbalizing that now you're going to look at how the draft affected enrollment in the military. So the students know what the draft is, and they know how it was implemented, but now they're going to look at how it affected enrollment, and that is how transitioning between the ideas you're teaching is being used in this strategy. So the three shifts, the shift in activity is probably used the most frequent because it is a simple statement and a transition point that prepares students for a change in the nature of the cognitive work. So an activity shift helps transition the students between activities. So you may say you're shifting from the warm-up to the classroom activity, or you're going from the classroom activity to the individual activity, or you're going from one activity to the other within the lesson. And you want to continually verbalize these transitions so the students know what's going on. It's kind of like linking what is up on the board when you write an itinerary, but you're just verbalizing it so they understand and they can follow along with you as you're instructing. A good example of this is, okay, that is all we will be doing today with Chapter 2 of The Great Gatsby. Now let's take a look at the next chapter so we can preview the new material. So the students know that they're done with Chapter 2, or that's all you're doing today in class with Chapter 2, and you're going to be looking at Chapter 3 so you can preview the new material that they're going to be reading for homework or that they're going to be doing in an activity in class. And they know they have to look at Chapter 3 and that they should be focusing on Chapter 3. A signal shift in pace signifies a shift in the pacing or speed of a lesson. It can indicate going faster or slower. And in general, in teaching, you have to use a timer or a bell or a chime. You have to keep your eye on the clock. And when you're trying to signal a shift in pace, you may say, okay, we're going to pick up the pace now. We only have 5 minutes left to finish this chapter. Get ready for more action. You may say, okay, we need to pick up the pace. We only have 10 minutes left to finish this activity before we have to share our responses with the class. And I want us to be ready. So they know in the class that they have to start picking up the pace or concentrating a little bit more on what they're doing so they can keep up. A shift in level indicates a shift in the cognitive level of the lesson, usually as the lesson is getting more advanced or more difficult to understand. So you can say, now we're moving on to dual themes in books, not just one theme. It is still a similar concept, just with more steps. So you're telling the students that instead of focusing on one theme in a book like money in The Great Gatsby, you have to focus on the duality of money and greed or money and behavior. They want to learn and understand, and you verbalizing, it's a similar concept, can help them with that, and they understand that they may have to think a little deeper. They have to do a little bit more advanced thinking to get to dual themes in books. In summation, when you're making transitions, you want to segue from one idea to the next. It's going to happen within a lesson. It's usually verbalized during direct instruction, and it links to what is to come immediately before the lesson itself. So essentially, what we do want to do is verbalize during a shift in activity, pace, or level, but we do not want to tell a student to move on from one thing to the next without making a transition that connects, without making a transition that they understand. Thank you.